You started a career path and have been grinding away, maybe all the way to the top. But you've decided the career you've dedicated your life to isn't the career you want to dedicate your life to. Now is just the beginning. Starting out or starting fresh. It's time to become the work experience kid. From time to time, you hear of a job that makes you go, how the hell did you get into that? Also, how was this a thing? Also, maybe I want to give that a go. Which works out really well for this podcast where I'm giving different jobs a go. Kate Pattison, or Patto, is a professional fan. She's been interviewed on TV and podcasts and other media about her work. She's part of a tight-knit community. She's produced content that has gone viral and even shared by artists like Kylie Minogue. But again, what is a professional fan? We're about to find out. It's been pretty cool doing this podcast, and I'd love to keep doing it. There are a number of free ways that you can help me. Firstly, listening to the pod is a great help. So thank you for that in the first place. Thanks for your support. You can share it with friends and family. That is also beneficial, not only for me and the longevity of this pod, but I also like to think that we're involved in some sort of community, helping other people find new ways to live, new motivation, etc., new careers. Also, if you have somebody who does a job and I haven't yet spoken to somebody who does that job, I'd like to talk to that person. That could even be you. You can nominate yourself or contact me or throw your friend under a bus or whatever on the website workexperiencekid.com. You're looking for Get Involved or the Contact tab. Kate Pattison, thanks for joining me on the Work Experience Kid podcast. I understand you're a professional fan.
Yes, that's what I like to call myself anyway. I am a PhD candidate at RMIT and I am researching fans. So I've been a fan pretty much my whole life, and this was a perfect excuse to turn that into some sort of career. So that's what I'm doing at the moment, which is quite fun, I have to say. Not
to be a smart ass, but you're talking about like being an enthusiast. What is this? What do you actually do? What does being what? You're studying it? I don't get it.
So basically, my core thing that I'm doing at the moment is I am writing a PhD on pop music fans. So basically what that means is I have been a fangirl of a lot of pop artists, from Taylor Swift, Delta Goodrem, Harry Styles, One Direction, you name it. I've been at that concert screaming along. But what I was really interested in is why it is that some people become fans, why other people are kind of more like passive consumers of media. They might like to watch TV shows, but don't really think too much about it, after the episode has aired or whatever. But as somebody that has kind of had their fandom as a kind of really big part of my life, that's how most people sort of know me as Patto the fangirl. And so I was really interested in kind of looking at how people are fans, what they do as fans, how it contributes to their life in some way or another. And so I'm kind of at the pointy end of my PhD at the moment, but essentially what I'm doing is I'm writing 90,000 words about how fans participate online, what it means to them to be a fan, and then is being a fan a useful thing in other areas of people's lives. So obviously this is a work experience podcast. One of the things that I'm actually researching is, can being a fan teach you skills that then could be helpful in your career? So if you like writing fan fiction, does that help you with your writing? If you love to make, TikTok edits of Harry Styles at a concert, is that a skill you could bring into a social media career? Or, if you argue with other fans online about what song is best or whatever other drama that gets on Stan Twitter, is that useful in, conflict resolution in the workplace? So that's kind of what I've been doing for the last 4 years, nearly at the end now. But yeah, that's kind of the core of my professional fan life right now, with a bunch of other kind of fun stuff on the side.
Okay, wow. Okay, that's a good overview. It sounds like it might be kind of the marketing from an artist's point of view.
Yeah. So one of the things that I look at is a thing called fan labor, which is essentially, if you think about how when you start in the media industry, you get paid absolute peanuts and or nothing to intern or to start out as a coordinator, you end up kind of doing a lot of work for not much return from a financial perspective. But the kind of idea of it is, you know, you are, I guess, cultivating skills and contributing to the place that you want to work, and you know, it's kind of all part of the experience. So for fans, a lot of the time, particularly when they're teenagers and they've got a little bit more time, obviously when you start working that's less the case, but you also spend a lot of time online and through your fandom. As I said, you might be making fan art, you might be promoting the latest album that somebody's released. You're doing a lot of the work that contributes to the success of that artist. And as we know, social media is so important at the moment, is fans try to, you know, put videos together, get people voting on things, get them to stream songs, and yeah, do a lot of the kind of marketing work that perhaps a traditional record label would also have previously taken on a lot of the responsibility for. So yeah, that's been a really interesting turn. I think the amount of focus on digital as a platform, and I guess the way that sort of traditional marketing techniques are happening alongside what people are doing online. Because, you know, if you have a viral moment online, that's great as an artist, but then we've also seen, obviously, you know, people get cancelled or considered a bit cringe or a flop in other ways too. So fans do a lot of work there, kind of trying to make sure that their artist is doing really well at any given time. And
it seems like teens these days are doing a lot more for the artists, because I remember just going on LimeWire and downloaded Linkin Park, and that's the only contribution I had to Linkin Park, and that was not even contributing. I was stealing from them, really.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like you used to just, you know, buy the CD or buy a concert ticket, but now there are all these other ways you can kind of be part of an artist's career that, yeah, as you said, was just not the case when you or I were growing up not that long ago.
So you've got these teenagers making content, essentially working on behalf of the music label, record label. Are record labels incorporating this fandom? Are they scared of it? Are they maybe taking advantage of the fan labor to get work done and promote artists and other things?
I think it depends on the artist and the record label. I mean, obviously Taylor Swift, everybody wants a piece of her these days, and she has always made a point to, you know, spend time with fans and encourage them and reply to them online and do all those types of things, which I think is part of the reason that she has had such a successful career. But yeah, we've seen, like, over the last probably 12 months, I've noticed that some record labels like Universal Group will start little broadcast channels on Instagram, particularly with the focus of engaging with fans in that way. Camila Cabello, who's one of the ex-members of Fifth Harmony, that band, she just this morning I saw they did a call out specifically asking for fans to sort of cover her concert while she's here in Australia. So I think that some of the record labels are kind of cottoning on as a, like, this could actually work for us. You know, we've got all these people here that are really excited about a particular artist and want to help be part of that. And I think other times, sometimes maybe they don't want the fans to be as involved, and they want to, you know, they've got a clear idea of how a rollout might go. And so they kind of just do the traditional, you know, artist does one thing, record label supports them, and then the fans just kind of get to enjoy it at the end of the day. So it depends. It depends.
How did you get into this? You've convinced the university to let you do a PhD.
I know. As I mentioned, I've been a fan for a long time alongside doing my usual university and workplace things. But yeah, I have to say, if you have a special area of interest and you want to make it your career, doing a PhD is a great way to do that. It's basically a bunch of different people who are all obsessed with a particular thing and get to spend 3 or 4 years writing about that and talking to people about it at length. So look, it is a lot, but it's kind of cool in that way that the universities give you the opportunity, because it's a special interest, to get people to research something. But yeah, for me, during COVID, was working full-time and doing social media stuff, and as everything was kind of slowing down, finally had some time to think about what I might want to do next. And I was like, I have definitely myself used a lot of the skills that I've had as a fan, you know, my jobs in radio and making content. And so I kind of wanted to see whether that was a thing that other people also did, and took that as a starting point for my research, and then have basically used it as an excuse to make being a professional fan my entire personality. And so that's kind of where I'm at now. But yeah, academia is the way to go if you are really obsessed with a particular thing, whether it's fandom, sport. There's a whole bunch of special people doing nice medical things as well. But yeah, it's one way to go about it.
Now, growing up, you were obviously a fan, but being professional is a new thing. What did you want to do when you were growing up?
Yeah, so when I was at university initially, I thought I would go into advertising. That's kind of what I did when I left school. To be honest, at the time, when I was in year 11 or 12, I really liked English. I really liked art, photography, that kind of thing. But I didn't really think I was good enough to do like just writing or just photography or a kind of specialized skill. So I was looking for something that kind of had a combination of those, which at the time advertising kind of seemed like a good fit, come up with ideas for campaigns and then let a bunch of professionals come in and actually shoot them or write them or do whatever. But then when I was at uni, social media, and this is going to show my age, was only just becoming something that people decided, hey, maybe we need people to do this as a job. And yeah, it actually started with me just kind of helping out and volunteering while I was at uni, doing social media content for different organizations, and then realized that was something that people were hiring for, and thought, oh, I'll just do this for a little bit until I figure it out. And then here we are 13 years later, still making social media content. So that's kind of how I ended up doing that as my kind of career path.
Sure. Well, it's good to see that you're working as a covert fan in a corporate media environment.
Yeah, working in radio, definitely a way to be a fangirl and get to do that every day as well.
What was it like working in radio, like a traditional media, when social media all of a sudden becomes a thing?
I think when anything is sort of the new and emerging thing, you get some people who are quite skeptical of it and don't really want to do something that's new that they haven't been across, and then other people who are all for it. And definitely in my career, I've worked with both types of people, and I think at times that meant that you had to work a little bit harder to try and convince somebody to do something that they were unfamiliar with or kind of thought was a bit frivolous. But then on the other hand, it was actually really exciting to get to play in a space that was so new, because there weren't really any rules. It was a lot of trial and error. And so we got to have a bit of fun as well. Facebook would introduce Facebook Live, and then we'd kind of work out the best way to incorporate that into what we were doing. But yeah, I think as we've seen, people eventually kind of cotton on that maybe something isn't going to go away anytime soon, that maybe they need to adopt to it. But with any career where people feel like they can also do it themselves, and social media being a thing that obviously everybody uses, sometimes that also brings up challenges, because it's kind of hard to position yourself as an expert when everybody has an Instagram page and can pick up their phone and make content. So I think that's also been a really interesting aspect of working in social media, is people being unsure about, well, how can you be particularly good at this thing if we can all do it in our day-to-day lives?
Podcasting's feeling that right now too, right?
Yep, get two blokes and a couple of microphones and you've got yourselves a podcast.
I said this with Mandy Turner. I need to get another guy in here. We need to talk about nothing. Here I am with a purpose, trying to figure out what to do with my life like an idiot.
I know. Here you are with the direction. How dare you? But yeah, it is. I think it's actually quite a similar thing. It's like you've got people who do this professionally. You've got people who are really skilled in different ways, whether they're amateurs or, working at a big corporation. And then you've got a bunch of people that just think, oh, I could probably do that. Like, but as we all know, it's a lot harder than it looks with a lot of these things.
You're obviously doing your PhD in professional fanning or fanning. What's the future looking like for you? Can you do this full time? It's
an interesting existential crisis that I'm having at the moment as I get towards the end of my PhD, as what do I actually want to do when, this all finishes. I have noticed that within media, there are some organizations that are sort of open to looking at fan engagement strategies. And as you said, kind of cottoning on to some of the ways that fans might be useful. And so potentially continuing down the consulting route in that way, shape or form. But I also really have liked the academic side of things. I currently tutor in pop culture, which again was not something when I was at uni that you could do classes with. And it's kind of fun talking to 18, 19-year-olds about different ways that popular culture engages with their everyday life and sort of looking at it through more of a critical lens. So, I mean, the academic job market is kind of as dire as the media industry is right now. But the other direction that I could go into is to continue teaching the next generation, as they say, about these kinds of things, which could be the other avenue that I take.
Regardless, I feel like you and your cohort of other professional fans out there extremely beneficial because you've got one way. Well, you've seen this with social media, right? This is how advertising should be. This is how content should be made. And all of a sudden, no, it's not. People are doing it on their own. How can we leverage that? It's quite valuable. Otherwise, those record labels, which are becoming less and less relevant, I reckon, just the way that Spotify music is consumed these days.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's going to be something that people hopefully will pay a little bit more attention to, whether that happens this year or in 5 years. But even if you just take TikTok as an example, like, again, I think we all sort of collectively sigh sometimes when a new social media platform comes along that we have to try and, join or adapt to, all of those things. But the way that has transformed the music industry in terms of the way that music gets discovered, kind of taking it away from the traditional radio stations or, record labels and traditional ways you discover music. And because that's so popular and people can't ignore it, the fact that the fans are also creating a whole lot of content there, again, I do feel like it's going to mean that a lot more people have to pay attention to what fans are doing in the future. So it's going to be an interesting space to watch, I think.
Coming from a consulting point of view, that's obviously as professional as you can get as a fan. But do you think I would need a qualification, or what skills do you think I might need?
If you are attempting any type of research, you kind of just have to be super interested in a particular thing. So obviously to be a fan, you do have to be that 1% of people who are just utterly obsessed with whether it's a TV show, a musician, a sports team. There are so many, obviously, different types of fans. So I think being super passionate is definitely a starting point, and kind of working out ways that you can turn that passion into something that makes you some money at the end of the day, whether that's consulting, whether that is teaching, whether that is doing content strategy for people, all of these different types of things. But one of the things I think in particular for people who are fans or people who are doing PhDs, the real struggle of, do you want the things that you usually do for fun to also be the things that you do for work, is the other side of it.
Doesn't help with any existential crises, does it?
Exactly. There's definitely an argument to be made about how it's great when you get to do the thing that you love every single day for work and for pleasure, but then at the same time, do you really want that to be everything that you do? And that's something that definitely at times I have grappled with. If I'm going to be writing 80, 90,000 words about Taylor Swift and Delta Goodrem, is that going to mean that I am less excited to go to a concert and to do all of this other stuff? So luckily, so far, so good. But yeah, something to definitely consider if you're considering going down the path of being a professional fan in some capacity.
Now, you say you got to be in the top 1% of, I don't know, pick your artist, Taylor Swift, Delta Goodrem. What makes you the 1%?
It's a good question. I think sometimes being a fan can feel a bit gatekeepy. You've got those classic videos of people who have camped out for days and have barricaded a concert, and other people feel like they haven't really had a shot to be involved. But there's definitely a broad spectrum of different fan activities and different ways you can participate. For some people, that is a lot of time. For other people, it's discussions with other people about the music or the things that the artist is doing. So I guess in my research, I'm kind of looking at all the different ways that fans participate. And generally, that involves a lot of time on the internet, on social media, talking to other fans and kind of engaging with the artist's work. But yeah, you can kind of dip in and out depending on, what the artist is doing or what's happening in your life too. There's no hard and fast rule with exactly how much time that you've got to spend as a fan. But usually people who are pretty passionate are spending a lot of their time talking to other people and engaging in some creative way.
Is there an age limit to becoming a fan? Because I couldn't imagine a boomer and their filming of anything, at a concert with their torch on their phone, but it's not their phone, it's their iPad. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, there's no real age limit. One of the things that's really interesting with pop music fandom, which is kind of what I'm really interested in, is that it's kind of seen as something you're supposed to grow out of. It's kind of not really cool to be a massive fan, you know, past the age of 25. Obviously, I'm in my 30s. So that's the other kind of thing that people grapple with, is the public perceptions of fandom as this kind of cringy, over the top activity that's trivial for young girls to do. So it does mean that for some people, as they get older, yeah, they kind of don't want to be a fan anymore. I think that that is changing a little bit in terms of how people are perceiving fans and fangirls and having those conversations. But you're never too old to be a fan. There's definitely people who have become Harry Styles fans in their 50s or 60s, or people who were fans of the Beatles who are now obviously older and are still kind of engaging by being a fan in different ways. So you might not be, as you said, the person who's making the TikTok content at the front of the crowd, but you could definitely be doing other things. Maybe you're writing music reviews or coming up with other ideas for ways that people can get involved.
You mentioned earlier sport. I think for older men in particular, that's probably where the fandom comes into play, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, it's funny how similar being a sports fan and being like a pop fangirl are. You know, you've got people screaming either at a show or at a stadium. You've got people wearing merchandise and other things, and people who just love every opportunity to talk about the team or the artist that they're a fan of. So there's definitely a lot more crossover, I think, than people think.
My cousin in Scotland, in Glasgow, he's like #1 Glasgow Celtic fan. Every time there's a new piece of merchandise, he's the first one to their training sessions. Not even the game, to training sessions, and like, oh, here he is again, coming to get us to sign something. Hey, Gio, how you doing?
Yep, that's the thing. And, you know, as you said, it's something that people are generally known for. Usually, if you know someone that's a big fan, it's a big part of their identity. So that doesn't surprise me.
So you're obviously a fan. You love being a fan. You love artists. But what do you love about being a fan? Can you even narrow that down?
I think there's a lot of different things. I think for me personally, one of the greatest kind of outcomes that I've had from being a fan is just that you get to meet a whole bunch of like-minded people who are also, you know, very passionate about a particular thing, whether that's an artist or otherwise. And, you know, I think people make friends at school, people make friends playing a sport. There are different avenues for making friends, but I've definitely found that the community element of the fan community has been something that I think kind of gets undervalued sometimes, because yeah, like some of my very best friends are people that I met, you know, in queues lining up to meet Delta Goodrem when we were 13 years old. And a lot of people have kind of really found that community of people that they really connect with, and particularly people who maybe live in areas that are more regional, like having a big kind of internet fandom to be part of is something that can be really beneficial and meaningful for people. So for me, that's one of the aspects. And then, yeah, I mean, as a social media professional in my non-fan life, a lot of the content skills that I have are from just being on the internet a lot, having that digital literacy and making little edits of artists that I like, which is kind of what you end up doing now for podcasts or other different things.
And the best part about what you just said is you found out how an adult can make friends.
Exactly.
Because it's impossible.
It's impossible to do. I mean, you know, if you've got children, you might make friends with people who also have children. There's other avenues, but yeah, no one has the time or energy to make friends, I feel like, as they get older. So if you're a fan, that's another thing that you can maybe get out of it.
Any stand-up memories for you over your fan journey, which is obviously, I'll call it from the amateur fan to professional fan?
Yes, we can call it that, the amateur to professional pipeline. I think one highlight, there's a couple of highlights, I would say. Last year, as kind of a real merge of my academic and professional fan life, we actually hosted a Swiftposium here in Melbourne, which was a academic conference on Taylor Swift, and kind of just took the opportunity to really look at her impact across a whole range of other things. So like people will talk about the Taylor Swift tourism boom, about how all the, you know, Melbourne businesses made more money and the friendship bracelet companies made money because Taylor was in town, but also lots of other kind of aspects of her career, you know, what she says politically or who she's dating always comes up in some way, shape or form. So there's a bunch of talks, for example, on like Taylor Swift's impact on the NFL in America since she's been dating Travis Kelce. But yeah, that was a real highlight because it was just a really fun week of bringing people together and talking about Taylor Swift at length, which obviously I loved.
And to butt in there, because I heard about this, probably from you, and I'm like, what is this? Like, this is ridiculous. Everything you've just outlined there, it's like, it's okay if economists do it, but as soon as you say, I'm a fan, it's a different story. When you're really discussing the same things from that one little thing to take out from what you just said, the economic benefits, the impact it had on a town, and it happened all around the world as well.
Exactly. And I think that's the thing. I think fandom in general has been underestimated a lot, over the last few decades. But yeah, as an academic pursuit, as a profession, obviously it's something that people don't really understand and kind of can think of as quite trivial. But then you take somebody like Taylor Swift and you realize just how much of an impact she's had, whether or not you like her music, whether or not you're a fan of her. It is kind of an undeniable thing that she is like such a force in society right now. And, if she puts her name to something, it's pretty likely to go well or have some sort of broader impact. So yeah, that was really interesting because we definitely got a lot of backlash for people being like, why on earth are we spending this university money talking about Taylor Swift? But then, yeah, there's heaps of other academic conferences that don't get that same kind of response. So that was one highlight. And then the other, my kind of first foray into fandom was as a Delta Goodrem fan when Innes and Eyes came out back in the early 2000s. And yeah, when that album turned 20 a couple of years ago, I actually got to make a little video for Delta to celebrate that album. So that was a real 360 moment from little Kate waiting outside Rove Live to meet her and then, getting asked to put that together. So that's
amazing. And it shows you how being a fan or amateur fan can turn into a moneymaker. Obviously, if Delta Goodrem or another artist love what you do, they can commission you to do something, right?
Exactly. So that was a nice coming together of kind of my social media skills and my fan life. But yeah, and with sports teams, which was another example we were talking about earlier, you'll see like a lot of people that work at sports clubs, generally people who have been fans for a long time because they've just got that really intricate knowledge of the club and the sport and all of that kind of stuff. And I do think in those industries, that's a useful thing to have. You should have people that are super passionate or knowledgeable about the thing that they're doing. That always helps.
I was going to say, if you're going to someone who only sells, internal doors, you want someone who's passionate about it, not doing a moneymaker. So that makes total sense. Going from your spectacular win, the greatest moment of your life, meeting Delta Goodrem and doing something for her. Obviously, you met her a few times. You stalked her, right? Any spectacular failures?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Could you even say it's like you do a TikTok and it doesn't go too well? Is that a failure in your eyes or is there something else?
Yeah, I mean, I think with social media and I guess with fandom more generally, because it is a very digital thing, you can't keep up with the algorithms and all of the changes and all that stuff. So I have posted many a piece of flop content online, which that's just part of it. I think one of the biggest things with being both a fan and kind of working in social is that you kind of just have to get over the cringiness of it. I think that can sometimes stop people from, whether it's making a podcast or like making content or whatever it is, or, talking about the thing that they're super passionate about. But once you get over that, and once you just accept the fact that it's just something that people do and that it's fine to video yourself and pop yourself online or make something for somebody. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes things do really well that you don't think they will and vice versa. And that's just part of the fun ups and downs of the fan journey.
I totally get that. I'm doing that with myself with the podcast. It took me 5 months to record my third episode. Just because I was like, oh, is this cringe? And obviously promoting myself. So I guess this is an open solicit to anyone who wants to be a Work Experience Kid pod fan to start doing all that for me for free. That'd be fantastic.
Exactly. That's what you've got to find. You've got to come up with a catchy name for them and then, get it started. Get a few people on board.
The first thing that came to mind was kitties, but that sounds a bit more like a pedophile thing.
You can workshop it. You can workshop it offline.
Yeah, it probably needs to be a really intense brainstorm to move away from that. So can we say the spectacular failures are what you don't like about fandom? The way the algos change and the way, content might work or doesn't work? Or is there anything else you don't like?
To be honest, the biggest barrier or thing that, people have had to kind of come up against, myself included, is just that yeah, people don't really think of fandom as being something that's very cool. It's kind of seen as, like I said, something you're supposed to grow out of and something that you know, would never talk about in a workplace. And so I think initially that was something that for me, I didn't hide it, but I would kind of pick and choose who I wanted to talk to about the different aspects of my fan life and what I wanted to do with that in terms of a career. And so I think probably there's a lot of other people who are in a similar boat where they might be super into something and they just don't like talking about it because they're scared it'll be embarrassing or it'll be cringe. But yeah, I think getting over that hurdle just means that you can just do really fun stuff in your life, which, you know, there's a lot of doom and gloom in the world. So we shouldn't be, you know, stopping ourselves from doing the stuff that we actually like doing day to day.
And it's like these haters will spend all day talking about how they can perfect the formula of an Excel spreadsheet cell, and they give you shit for enjoying something. Everyone enjoys what they want to enjoy.
Exactly. It's not hurting anybody, you know? So I think we should just all let everybody do the things that they like doing and give them a bit of a break if it's not something that they think is particularly cool, which is fine.
Now, I'm obviously doing this podcast to learn about how to be a professional fan, or help listeners become professional fans. But while we don't have an official sponsor for the podcast, I want to flog the crap out of everyone that's on the pod when they have a project. Patto, you've been involved in a book called Taylor Swift, Culture, Capital and Critique. Just one example of an area or some work that a professional fan can be involved in. You can buy the book pretty much everywhere. I've got a link to it on the Work Experience Kid website. Guests tab, then Kate Pattison. You can go through there. You can also hire Patto for anything fan related. Get in touch with her and she'll let you know if she can do it. If it's Taylor Swift or Delta Goodrum related, 100% she's in. Anyway, I hope you don't mind me saying that, Patto. Now we can make it about me. As a professional fan, what might I be doing day to day, maybe week to week?
Obviously, there's a lot of different ways you can be a fan, but I would say that the main way is probably you're going to be spending a lot of time on TikTok, you're going to be looking on Instagram, you're going to be watching a lot of content. If you're a Swiftie, for example, you're going to be spending a lot of time decoding the potential Easter eggs that she has left in her work. But I think for a lot of the time, it's making content about the thing that you like, talking to other fans about that thing. And then, if you want to get into research, then it means interviewing people and kind of writing about it in a way that, I don't know, reflects some broader trends of, you know, how we interact with popular culture more generally. But I'd say you're spending your time online and you're making content is probably the bare bones of what it takes to be a fan.
Cool. Increase the screen time. That's not a very productive thing to be doing day to day, but for fan, that's definitely allowed.
Yes, my screen time is abysmal. I think I'm at about 7.5 hours. But what I'm actually kind of focusing on with my research is the time that people spend making that content and doing all of that stuff is actually teaching them skills simultaneously that they can then use in other areas of life. So trying to kind of see if that time that is spent online on our phones, on the laptop, can actually be productive at the same time.
Just quickly touch on Taylor Swift, because you mentioned the Easter eggs. I know there was a whole lot of Easter egg chat about when she would release Reputation, and then she went and bought her Masters, which is obviously the goal. That's a win. But how did the fan community feel about all the Easter eggs potentially not being right? Because I heard it's going to be released on the Year of the Snake, the Lunar New Year, and then it's going to be released at the AMAs, and then there was some guy in the Pacific on an island that's going to change his underwear on this particular day to this colour.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think you've got to give yourself some credit, Skip. You're really up with the Swiftie knowledge. I think you're on your way to be a Taylor Swift fan with that overview. But yeah, one of my favorite things about Swifties is they obviously do like to theorize a lot, but they also are very aware of the fact that most of the time they are quote unquote clowning, which is being very incorrect about the silly theories that they've come up with. But yeah, there was a great quote I saw a Swiftie do, I don't know, a couple of years ago that was like, you know, even a wrong clock is right twice a day. And that's a lot of the time how Taylor Swift fans feel. You know, once or twice they manage to get it right, and that's a big win. But a lot of the other times it's coming up with things that then don't end up coming to fruition. So it was very funny when Taylor said that she hadn't even, you know, recorded 2/3 of the album at that point, when everybody was so convinced that it was coming out on that Monday, the AMAs. But I think people are obviously more excited about the fact that she's got her masters back, so they're happy to get over the incorrect theorizing for that broader win for the fandom.
And just to touch on my Swiftie, she's probably maxed out my Spotify list at the end of the year for maybe 3 or 4 years. I usually don't post it because it's like, oh, everyone's going to know that I've just smashed Swiftie.
You're right. That's what I'm saying. This is the thing. People tend to hide their fandom. So this is a prime example, but I'm glad that she's on your regular rotation of Spotify.
Going on to what you're saying about the clock being right twice a day, isn't that a great motto for life? You should just be having the crack, not being afraid to fail. You should just be giving it a go. And if you're right, you're right. And then maybe you just follow that path and just keep going in that direction.
No one's ever going to be right all of the time. And that would be quite boring, to be honest. So yes, trying to embrace the failures or the things that don't do as well. And then, yeah, when things happen and the magical lines up and it works, then that's great. And try to focus more on that than the times that it doesn't.
You've mentioned this throughout the chat so far. Who are you working with throughout the day? You're working with fellow Swifties, fellow fans. You're working with maybe other academics. Potentially, if you're lucky, you're working with the artist. Anyone else?
Yeah, so while writing my PhD, there's a bunch of other lovely PhD students that I work with who are all doing other music-related research projects. So yeah, I'm one of many, at least at RMIT, doing that kind of thing. Then interacting with students who, you know, are coming in wanting a career in media or wanting to do something with pop culture, spending time talking to them about it. And then, yeah, for some people, it's working with people in the industry, whether that's record labels, radio stations, podcasts. A lot of people have a Substack, you know, that's the other, you know, avenue a lot of people considering is kind of having, you know, the good old fashioned blog is back in fashion. And then, yeah, like talking to other fans, interviewing them, sometimes working with the artists. It really depends. Could be any one of those things on any given day.
And I imagine the most challenging part of your job is trying to keep up with the algos.
Yeah, it takes a lot of time and commitment to stay up to date with all of these things, from the music someone's releasing to, yeah, what Zuckerberg or somebody is talking about, changes in the algorithm. And yeah, it's something you kind of got to be involved in the day-to-day of how trends are evolving and all of that kind of stuff.
Okay, I feel like that's going to be a challenge for me, considering I don't usually care enough about it.
Yes. It does mean that sometimes, though, you can be a very good contributor in a trivia team if you are spending a lot of your time up to date with pop culture.
Very true.
You'll have to decide if that's something that you would like to do.
That seems to be some advice to give someone who wants to become a pro fan. Just immerse yourself in so much of what that particular artist, team, whatever is doing.
And I think also just talking about the things that you are fans of. I've found over the last few years in particular that, you know, having conversations with people about what I'm doing or who I'm a fan of, or, you know, what Sabrina Carpenter's latest album cover is, or whatever it might be, that then opportunities kind of present themselves, whether that's doing guest lectures, whether that's doing content strategies, whether it's being interviewed for something, you know, things kind of come out from just talking about the thing that you really like and seeing where it can take you.
If you were to do anything differently, I know you've really sort of gone deep over the last, 4 or 5 years, but is there anything you'd do differently if you were to start becoming a fan again, or maybe if you're a teenager going through it?
That is a good question. I think I probably wouldn't have had the stamina or the dedication to write 90,000 words back when I was a 16, 17-year-old. So I do think it's probably a good thing that it's kind of happened a bit later in life. But yeah, I think I'm a big fan of the portfolio career, the kind of doing multiple things to make up one kind of full-time job. And I think particularly after COVID, that's something that a lot more people are doing, having a bit more freedom to freelance or do passion projects and do all that kind of stuff. So I think if anything, maybe I would have started doing that a little bit earlier and taken that kind of risk to, pursue my fandom as a professional thing, but also just to kind of juggle a few different things at once to kind of see what I got the most enjoyment out of, and not kind of tied myself down to a full-time job, because that's kind of what you're expected to do when you leave uni and do all those things. But now you can kind of have a bit of a combo career, which I really like.
What skills or traits should a good fan have?
I think you need to be super passionate, get over any sort of cringe or embarrassment that you might feel about liking a particular thing, because it shouldn't matter who or what it is that you're a fan of. And then, yeah, just some good old fashioned digital content skills, you know, being able to be inspired by a movie, a TV show, a song, and then, yeah, seeing kind of how you can creatively channel that in one way or another, I think is, yeah, a really key part.
You've been a fan, amateur, professional for a while now. You've seen so many people coming in and out. Is there something that you would ask someone? So, for example, I'm coming to you. I want to be a fan. Is there something that you might ask me to see if I'm an actual fan? Or, well, I guess in the fan area, you've got an actual fan and starfucker. Is there a way that you can kind of go, you're just a starfucker, you're not a fan, I'm not going to help you?
I mean, I think one of the things is the longevity. I think fans are people that usually have supported somebody for a long time and kind of don't just jump on the bandwagon when somebody is, super popular or having their moment or touring Australia or whatever. But yeah, usually fans will talk to other fans about, you know, the deep cuts on an album that, you know, goes beyond just the singles that your gen pop might know. I think one of the other parts of being a fan too is that you are kind of in the trenches sometimes with any popular figure, whether it's a musician or otherwise. Sometimes they misstep, sometimes they release an album that's a flop and people don't really like them, and you've kind of got to just persist. And that, I think, is the real tell if somebody is a true fan or not.
I've had 2 dreams about Taylor Swift, and if I left it there, it'd be quite weird. One time I was hanging out with her and Ralph Fiennes played Michael Gudinski and we're trying to cut a record deal. That's one of them. And then another one, I can't remember what it was, but we were best mates. So in my dream world where we were best mates twice, am I a Swiftie? Am I an actual fan?
I think you could be. I mean, I think from memory too, you're also born in 1989. Is that?
That's true. Kindred spirits or something.
Kindred spirits. You're already halfway there with being a Swiftie. But yeah, I think there's some level of care there. She's infiltrating the dream. So maybe that's something in your future. You're gonna be a full-time Swiftie. We'll see.
So maybe I need to see if she has dreamed about me not knowing who I am. Like, I have to meet her at some point, and if she recognizes me from the dreams, then maybe it's meant to be.
This can be the call out to Taylor Swift. If you're listening, give Skip a call.
Oh, and she will be listening. She's part of the early adopter audience for the Work Experience Kid Pod.
Look, her current partner also has a podcast, so clearly that's something she's a fan of too. So you never know.
All right, I'm going to @Swiftie. All right, so I'm becoming a new fan. Or who knows? I might just leapfrog to being part of Swiftie's posse. But what should one do as a new pro fan to be successful? You know, maybe to avoid that learning curve early on, throw it out there, maybe just try and shake it off, which I didn't mean to say, but it came out that way. Like, shake off all the hate that comes to you.
Yeah, I think that's one thing, just, kind of getting over that initial cringe factor. And then I think a really big part of being a fan that will help in all aspects of life is, just really getting involved in the community, talking to other fans. They are very helpful when it comes to teaching you how to do things or just being a support. So if you're a new burgeoning fan, talk to other people about it that have that same passion. And I think that'll be something that helps you in the long run.
You've given us a good insight into what it's like to become a professional fan. Part of the pod is for me to give careers and jobs a go. What task might you set a junior fan to see if they have the chops to become a professional?
So I think I would ask a future fan to create a piece of fan content that could either be fan fiction, if you like writing, or it could be a video edit, with a trending song, a la the fan editors on TikTok. So do one of those two things about the thing that you're passionate about, and then that will give me an indication of whether or not you have what it takes to be a real fan.
Okay, and what does a good job look like? I know there's a couple of different executions you mentioned, but like overall, what might you be judging me on?
Oh, good question. I think it's just seeing where the inspiration has taken you. I obviously am not an expert on all types of fandoms and all types of artists, so you can kind of pick and choose who you want, but we really want to see that you have been inspired by the thing that you are obsessed with and have managed to find a way to channel that creatively in some way, shape, or form.
And any advice before I start this trial task?
Immerse yourself in the world of TikTok editors on TikTok or on Wattpad or AO3, that's the other fan fiction site. and see how other people are doing it. And I think that will help you to kind of get a sense for what might be involved.
Cool. I've written all that down.
Perfect. I can't wait to see it.
Thank you very much for your time on this. I wish me luck with this trial because I'm not passionate about many things, but I'm sure I'll figure it out.
You'll get there. You'll get there.
Thanks. I feel like you have too much confidence in me. Remember, if you want to listen to the trial episode, subscribe to the Work Experience Kid podcast. It'll land straight in your podcast feed. And as always, if you would like to be involved in the pod or support the podcast, you can always visit the website workexperiencekid.com.